ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano. The Other Side of Midnight presents The Midnight Files.
Midnight in the desert, shooting stars across the sky. This magical journey will take us on a ride, filled with the longing, searching for the truth. Will we make it till tomorrow? Will the sun shine on you? Midnight in the desert, and we're listening. Ooh, we're listening to you.
All right, it is time for us to do a little exploration, a little exploring, a little conversation about what might be out there, namely in terms of life. There seems to be three main camps when it comes to extraterrestrials. There are some people that believe that we are the only life in the universe. There are other people that believe, no, of course, we're not the only life in the universe, but we have never interacted with any intelligent life anywhere, and they've not interacted with us. And then you have folks in the third camp. The folks in the third camp believe that not only are we not the only life in the universe, but that other species, other beings, have actually visited this planet and in some respects have been pretty pivotal in the development of human civilization. And a lot of folks wonder if we are on the verge of some sort of major disclosure by the government about what they actually know on the UFO front. I am very pleased to welcome an expert in this regard. He is a lecturer, a filmmaker, and an author whose latest book is Rungs of Disclosure, Following the Trail of Extraterrestrials and the End Times, L.A. Marzulli. Mr. Marzulli, thanks for joining me on the radio.
Hey, my pleasure, Frank. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. So in Rungs of Disclosure, you mention that what was once considered fringe is now becoming reality. Do you think that this shift is due more to an actual increase in extraterrestrial activity, or is it a societal shift where people are more willing to believe in something that used to be considered science fiction?
Well, I think it's both. I think everything really kicks off around 1947 with the whole Roswell event, which began the decades of deliberate obfuscation by the powers that be. However, in 2017, everything shifted on the Tucker Carlson show when Commander David Fravor appears. And remember, Fravor is an F-18, former F-18 pilot. This guy's a credible witness. And they released at the same time the video of the tic-tac-shaped object that Fravor encountered. And what was interesting about that, when Fravor looks right at the camera, Tucker Carlson asked him a question. In your opinion, what was this tic-tac-shaped object that you encountered? And he looks right at the camera and said, whatever this was not from this earth. So, I mean, that to me is absolutely groundbreaking. So that's one side. The other part is that there's such an ambivalence in the population. Most people don't care. And I think the reason for that is we've been inundated with E.T. movies and television shows. I mean, this goes back in the 50s, for crying out loud. So people are like, they've been inundated, and it's almost like pre-programming. They've looked at this stuff for decades. So to them, it's like, well, yeah, we've known they were here. So what? But there's a very dark underbelly to this whole phenomena, and that's what I really get into with the runs of disclosure.
Interesting. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is L.A. Marzulli, author of the new book, Rungs of Disclosure. You present a biblical perspective on extraterrestrial phenomena, which I always find interesting because if you look at a lot of biblical descriptions, it reads a lot like modern-day UFO reports. How do you reconcile the scientific understanding of the universe and the potential for life elsewhere with the spiritual or theological interpretations of these encounters?
Well, here's the deal. Nobody really knows what this is and where we are in it. I mean, if this is a holographic universe, which would make a lot of sense in a lot of ways, and there are some scientists who are wondering whether we are in some sort of a holographic universe. In other words, and I use this analogy a lot, if planet Earth, if the United States of America is analogous to the universe, where is Earth? Are we in Tucson, Dallas, Miami, New York City? Nobody knows. Nobody knows what this is or where we are. Really, no one knows how it got here. And now we're starting to look at, some scientists are looking at this, well, maybe it is a holographic universe. So it's very complex. It's a very complex issue. These entities, when they appear, they can manipulate space, time, matter, and energy in ways that completely defy our physics. It's another physics. It appears to us like magic. I'll give you one example. So, and I use this example a lot. So there's a guy in a prison cell. He's chained to a wall. There are other prisoners in there with him. All of a sudden, an entity appears. How does he get in there? Comes through the wall, right? He appears in the jail cell. The prisoner's chains fall off of him. So this entity somehow manipulated space, time, matter, and energy. The chains fall off. Then the prison door opens by itself. This entity doesn't have a magic key. The door just opens. They walk out in the corridor. The guards, which are supposed to be awake and and watching the prisoners, they're all asleep. They get to the end of the corridor, the prison door opens by itself, they walk out, the prisoner is free, then this entity disappears. So when I roll that story at UFO conferences, I'll say, what does that sound like to you? Does it sound like an abduction? Most hands go up and say yes. That is the biblical account of Peter's jailbreak. That's what I call it. It's found in the book of Acts. But when you couch it that way, when you eliminate angel and just say entity, and you don't say Peter, like I just did, that is Peter's jailbreak. So when you have an abduction phenomena, and that's a good guy. That's a good guy that releases Peter. But an abduction phenomena, you're laying in your bed, it's all of a sudden 3 o'clock in the morning, you have a feeling of dread, there are some sort of entity in the room, you're not sure what's going on, your eyes pop open, you realize you're paralyzed, suddenly you are levitated off the bed, or you're thinking to yourself, how can this possibly be happening? Your eyes dart to the left. Next to the bed are 4 or 5 of these gray aliens with the big black eyes. Now you're floating towards the window, and you're thinking to yourself, are they going to open the window? They don't open the window. You go through the window. You're in a beam of white light. You find yourself in the ship. You come to. You're on a metal table. They're doing horrific, usually sexually charged experiments on you. If you're a man, sperm is taken. If you're a woman, ovum is taken. Look, I've been in this literally for decades, 4 decades. I've seen it all, talked to a lot of different people, a lot of experiences, people who have been taken. In fact, we have a film. It's the 4th film in our 10-part film series on the whole UFO phenomena, and it's on abductions. And it's not, look, these are not friendly space brothers from some faraway distant planet. They are, in my opinion, interdimensional entities that have a very nefarious agenda.
If folks are just tuning in, you're listening to The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. My guest is L.A. Marzulli. So, one of the things I like about this audience is there's a good mix, I think anyway, of people that are believers, that do believe that we are visited by extraterrestrials, and skeptics, people that think I'm a crackpot for even hosting anyone that puts forward that view. And I think that allows for some interesting discussions on both sides and people to hear things that they wouldn't otherwise hear. Speak to the skeptics. Some skeptics might argue that encounters with extraterrestrials could be psychological projections or misinterpretations of natural phenomena. How would you respond to someone who believes that these experiences are simply a result of the human mind rather than external beings?
I have a film taken by the late Dr. Roger Leir on Lake Kumburgaz in Turkey. The film is not your typical UFO encounter where you see a light in the sky and it darts across or makes a right angle turn. I've got films like that too. The Kumburgaz UFO film, in my opinion, is one of the most authentic films out there. Dr. Roger Leir was on the shore. He hired a camera guy. They watched this thing for hours. And what's incredible about this, not only do you see them, and the cameraman, bully for this guy, he really did a good job. You see the moon. It's very large, and on the right, at about the 4 o'clock position, is a light, and that light, the cameraman zooms in, and you lose the moon, and the light gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's a craft, and it's a gull-wing craft. You see the heat signature. There's some sort of like a cockpit thing that's open. There are two entities, and my late business partner, Richard Shaw, did a whole deal on this when he went in frame by frame by frame. These are the grays, in my opinion. We think there's an abduction happening. When I show people this at conferences, I just let the thing, I don't say a word. I just let it roll for like 2 or 3 minutes. And then I look to the audience and I say, okay, now the ball's in your court. What are you going to say? That this is somehow a Hollywood rendition, that this is all fabricated, that it's interpretation. This is a craft, and the craft moves around. You see it. And then in the daytime, the craft descends, and it's right over the lake. And you see all the lights and the whole deal. I mean, that's just one. But then you talk to the abductions. You talk to the people who have actually been taken, who have had encounters. These people aren't lying. I mean, they're sane. I mean, I've talked to them. They're not making stuff up. In fact, we published one book, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, by a woman who was taken at a very early age. Here's the deal. Everything goes back to the Genesis 3:15 seed war. And if a person understands that and gets a grasp on what's in the biblical prophetic narrative, specifically Genesis 3:15. So you got Adam and Eve over here, and I realize some of your listeners are going to go, here we go, Adam and Eve. But Adam and Eve are there in the garden. Something horrific has happened. They are terrified. You've got the dragon, the serpent, the devil on the left-hand side. You got the pre-incarnate Christ who says this, and in my opinion, Frank, this is the gateway to the entire Bible. He says to the dragon, your seed, your offspring, will be at enmity, at war, with the seed, the offspring of the woman. The one coming from the woman, the proto-evangelion, the Messiah, will crush your head. That's the entire Bible. Then, thousands of years later, you get this prophet that lived about 2,500 years ago. The guy's name is Daniel, a good guy, a good angel, appears to him and said, here's the deal. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men. Who are they? There's that word seed again. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. And then he tells Daniel, Dan, go your way. This is all, seal up the book. This is all for the last days. This is all in the end times. And then he gives us a supernatural clue of what the end times will look like. Men and women will run to and fro over the face of the earth. Knowledge will increase. This is where we are. As we are speaking right now, thousands of planes are airborne. We run to and fro over the face of the earth. Knowledge increases exponentially. We are in this period of time where that book is now unsealed, and people like me look at that, and it's the first time I heard that was from Chuck Missler decades ago, and I just about fell out of my chair. I couldn't believe it. Their seed, who are they? Their seed will mingle with the seed of men. This gets into the whole so-called alien abduction phenomena, and this is a very dark underbelly. Not too many people have really explored it. Heck, Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, was groundbreaking, and that really opened the door to the whole alien abduction phenomena, but it's real.
Well, Willie's been a guest on the show. He's absolutely terrific. I want to follow up on the religious implications of what you just said, the nefarious the motivations that you ascribe to these folks, and a little bit about the end times. But first, you raise the possibility that governments may be aware of extraterrestrials and could be working with them covertly. What evidence do you have to support this, and how do you differentiate it from other theories out there that are often dismissed as lacking proof?
First of all, you've got the congressional hearings, which I write about in the book. And one of the ladder rungs, remember, we're going up a ladder. So the first rung on the ladder is Commander David Fravor. This military guy, He's telling us exactly what he saw, what he encountered. By the way, the craft, the tic-tac-shaped craft, jammed his radar. That's an act of war. He also stated on the Tucker Carlson show that this tic-tac-shaped object moved away from him like a bullet out of a gun. We're talking 50 miles in 2 seconds. How was it possible? How was it possible? The G-forces would kill a human being. That's another story of the whole propulsion system. We know that the congressional hearing, when Representative Nancy Mace from South Carolina asked David Grush, who was a whistleblower, do we have crashed craft in our possession? He looks right at her and he basically says yes. So she follows up with the $64,000 question. Did they recover bodies from this craft? He again looks right up at her and says, yes, we recovered biologics. And she goes, were they human or non-human biologics? He looks right up at her again and he says, non-human biologics. Not only do we have the crashed craft, we've got the bodies of the occupants in the craft. We know also from the work of Bob Lazar, and I've been a fan of Lazar since he broke the story with George Knapp in the 90s about Area 51. As for he worked on the propulsion system. He was back engineering the propulsion system. Then we've got I talk about this in the book also. We've got the deathbed confession. It was actually an affidavit that was a legal document. It was sealed until the time of Walter G. Haught's death, and then it was opened up, and Walter G. Haught basically stated on the record he was taken to Hangar 84. I've been to Hangar 84. That's in Roswell, New Mexico. That's where he saw not only the wreckage, the craft that was there, but also the bodies. They've known about it for years. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that stuff has been back engineered. The bodies were flown to Wright Pat. We've got too many eyewitnesses. And here's the deal, Frank. These people are burdened. They are burdened down with their non-disclosure agreements. They're burdened with the fact that they've seen something and they can't tell anybody. We broke the story with Robert Salas. Now he's the book. He's on the lecture circuit, the whole deal. Salas was the base commander. This was another major rung on the disclosure ladder. He was a base commander at the Maelstrom Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Base. 10 missiles, UFO appears over the gate. Everybody sees this thing. The 10 intercontinental ballistic missiles, their nukes, are turned off. They're switched off. How is it possible that this craft can do that? And on it goes.
Going back to the religious implications, if extraterrestrials have been visiting Earth for thousands of years, what does that imply about religious teachings that claim Earth and humanity are central to God's creation? Could that challenge the core tenets of faith for a lot of people?
Well, it will. But remember, in the book of Revelation, it tells us that God creates a new heaven and earth. And another part of the biblical prophetic narrative is going to roll up the heavens like a scroll. Now, is that just metaphor or is it something else? It goes back to my original statement. We don't know what this is or where we are. As we are speaking right now, okay, I'm breathing, my eyes are blinking, my heart's going, I'm digesting my wonderful dinner tonight. I mean, the whole deal. Everybody's doing this. Where is your consciousness? Where does Frank reside? Where does LA reside? Nobody knows. Nobody knows where consciousness resides and how it interfaces with this little three-dimensional biological bodysuit that we find ourselves in, which, by the way, is pretty amazing when you think about it. But we don't know where consciousness is. Nobody has a clue. Nobody knows. So we're talking something, in my opinion, that's extremely supernatural. And we know from the biblical prophetic narrative that God creates a new heaven and a new earth. We also know that this rebellion took place millennia ago. We find ourselves in a cosmic war. We do. We also have prophecies that tell us that even the elect would be deceived. Men will faint from fearfulness coming upon the earth. It'll be like the days of Noah. These are the words of Jesus telling us. I mean, this isn't a feel-good message. Men faint from fear for what is coming upon the earth. That's not a happy thought. And what's coming upon the earth? What is manifesting? What has manifested through the millennia, but now is manifesting in ways that I've never seen it. I mean, UFO sightings are off the hook, absolutely off the hook. And the footage is getting better. So, in my opinion, the biblical prophetic narrative tells us exactly what we're looking at, that these nefarious entities, just like the days of Noah, were mingling their seed. They are creating a hybrid race. This is where the whole idea of the Nephilim, which we find in Genesis 6, comes into play. And most people have no idea about this, but it's there. Genesis 6 is the culmination of that of that mandate that comes down from the pre-incarnate Christ in the Garden of Eden. Your seed, your offspring, will be at war at enmity with the offspring of the woman. The offspring of the woman is the proto-evangelion, was the Messiah. That's the promise, and that happened 2,000 years ago, that's another 3-hour conversation. But the seed war erupts 3 chapters later. People are always going, L.A., why the flood? Why the flood? Why is God so wrathful? Because you've got the mixing of the seed, and you've got the culmination of the other side's war, where they basically almost win. Because if they can corrupt the genome to the point where it's a hybrid entity, then Messiah can't be born. But 8 souls get on that ark, and they are all pure in their generations. It actually says that in the scripture, that Noah and his wife, Noah is pure in all his generations. It doesn't mean he was without sin. It means that he wasn't contaminated. There was no Nephilim blood. And when you get into the Nephilim, and I've written books on this and films and the whole deal, it's global. Frank, it's a global phenomenon. They were here, and they set up.
And so basically, as if I understand it, the Nephilim, which Genesis 6 refers to as kind of giants, sons of God, I think, you believe that they have descendants that are still walking the earth to this day?
Again, we broke the film story on this with the Kandahar giant. 2001, there was a group of soldiers that were looking for high-value targets in the Kandahar area in Afghanistan. They went missing. They missed their rally points. Next morning, a chopper drops another platoon out there. We actually talked to the shooter. We have to disguise his voice, disguise his face. I've had too many people come up to me. When I say too many people, I've got 3 or 4 witnesses that corroborate the story. So something happened there. And they came upon the remnants of the first platoon. They found pieces of the radio. Then they started to find what looked like blood and flesh and this thing. And as they're coming upon this area, above them is a cave. And out of the cave comes a 12 to 14 footer with red hair, double rose teeth, brandishing a spear. This is a stuff out of some kind of a nightmare. And we broke that story with the shooter. We also had a secondary witness. Again, we blocked out his he was wearing a hoodie. We'd never show his face, the whole deal. And he was in the Kandahar province about 2 years later. And the rumors around the Kandahar giant were all over the place. I recently, about 2 years ago, spoke to someone in Special Forces who was retired. And basically this guy was trying to clear his conscience, and he went to a pastor and sort of, debriefed for like 4 or 5 hours. And the pastor knew about my work and got a hold of me. I was able to speak to this guy, and we talked shop about the Kandahar giant. Recently, the grandson of the witch, I'm not making this stuff up, his grandmother was a witch, a bruja, and she was in the Kandahar area. And she used to bring the goats to the cave, near the cave, tie them to a stake, and walk away. In other words, they're feeding the giant, basically. So, and I get it. People look at this and, there's no military record of it. Well, of course there's no military record of it. They keep the stuff secret. I had another guy that came up to me. I never met him, but he emailed me several times, and then he went dark. And this happens a lot. He told me that he was part of a secret government program that was processing these giants when they were coming in from not only Afghanistan, but Iraq. So, wow. I mean, people can do with that what they will. I believe it's real. I've talked to these people. I talked to the one shooter who came on the record, and this guy was very emotional. And he never changed his story. I just don't believe anything anybody tells me. I interviewed this guy 3 or 4 times before we finally flew him out and got him on camera. And again, we pixelated his face and disguised his voice. What he saw was life-changing for him. And it troubled him to the point, just like David Grush, where he finally was a whistleblower and came forward.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom: The Dark Ages. Available May 15th on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. Pre-order now.
Rated M for mature.
Shopping is hard.
I can never find anything in my size.
I don't even know my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
There's a better way. Make it easy with Stitch Fix. Just share your size, style, budget, and done. Your personal stylist sends pieces picked just for you.
That was easy.
Stitch Fix, online personal styling for everyone. Free shipping and returns. No subscription required. Get started today at stitchfix.com.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera a Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Just going back to where you brought up the nefarious motivations of these other entities, the Greys, you explored the question of who they are and what they want. In your view, why do you think that extraterrestrials generally may not be benevolent? Why do you believe that they may pose a threat to humanity? How do you form that judgment?
Is it okay to abduct a 5-year-old boy against his parent wishes and implant them? And I ask that to people all the time. It's sort of a rhetorical question. But the bottom line, no, it's not okay to abduct a 5-year-old boy without his parents' permission at 3 o'clock in the morning and then do ridiculous sexual experiments on him. It's not good. It's not a good thing. And these entities, first of all, they're interdimensional. They're not extraterrestrial. They're interdimensional. They can manipulate space, time, matter, and energy. There's a breeding program which hails back to the prophetic narrative that we talked about a few minutes earlier, Daniel chapter 2, verse 43. It's just an address. It's like, people go, oh, he's a Bible thumper. That's just an address. It's like if I'm reading Moby Dick and I say, hey, turn to chapter 4, you'll read all about Queequeg. No, it's just an address. It's Daniel chapter 2, 43, so you can go there yourself and read it for yourself. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. The dragon is outnumbered 2 to 1. He's creating an army. It's not exactly, but it's so similar to the days of Noah, where the seed is being mingled. These are modern-day Nephilim that are being created. Hybrids are being created. Dr. David Jacobs' book, Hybrids are walking amongst us, and we've had too many people who have had encounters with them.
Let me end with this, and I hope you'll come back. I really have enjoyed this discussion. What do you think the future holds in terms of official extraterrestrial disclosure? Do you believe there'll ever be a time when the truth is fully revealed to the public, or will these revelations always remain hidden in the shadows?
No, they will definitely not remain hidden in the shadows. We are in a period of time, which in my opinion is absolutely unprecedented in all of history. They're rolling this thing out, the powers that be. But here's the deal, and this is the very last chapter in the book. We're not there yet, but this is what I'm sort of throwing out. This is conjecture on my part, but this is what I think is going to happen. Right now, we are getting all sorts of saber rattling from Russia. Iran now has enough material to create 9 nuclear weapons. Russia's talking about using tactical nukes if they're backed up into a corner. We've got nukes in Pakistan. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And for the first time since the Cold War, we're hearing saber rattling with nukes. I mean, Putin has stated, if you do A, B, and C, we will nuke London and Washington. That's what he's saying. Is that just idle talk? The mullahs in Iran are saying we're going to nuke Tel Aviv, and they will if they get a chance. Who are we kidding? The bottom line is, when you look at Hiroshima, that's 1945, and Nagasaki. So that brings us into the nuclear age, and that's game-changing, life-changing. Well, that, in my opinion, is a major trigger, and I don't have time to really detail why it's a major trigger. But I believe that there's going to be a nuclear event somewhere on the planet. Now, get this, Frank. We are all connected because of the internet. You and I are talking right now. The whole satellite communication system, it's a global network. We're all linked up, as it were, in ways that are absolutely historically unprecedented. You get a nuclear event anywhere on this planet, anywhere, the grid lights up. Everyone on this planet, when I say everyone, I'm speaking rhetorically, but everyone on this planet sees that, watches this, what's going to happen next, looks at the aftermath, and everybody's absolutely terrified. You get a nuclear event going off, it creates a great collective fear, in all of humanity's history. We've never had anything like this. And because we're all connected, we watch it like a village. We watch it globally. That's when they show up.
L.A. Marzulli, thank you very much. It's a fascinating book. If people want to check it out, it's called Rungs of Disclosure, Following the Trail of Extraterrestrials and the End Times. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank. Take care.
If you want to comment on any portion of our discussion, feel free to do so. 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.